Hello again, I am Blunty, and I've been secretly playing Wild Hearts for the past week, thanks to the community team for that, by the way, but now it's not secret. I can finally start telling you about it, and man, do I want to tell you about it, because until now, I've been saying, oh, man, I hope this game plays like it looks, because it looks super fun, and it looks like a genuine and healthy competitor for Capcom's Monster Hunter series, and hey, guess what? I got my wish. It does play as fun as it looks, maybe even more so. Now, it's obviously inspired by Monster Hunter, but the devs have worked hard to make sure it has its own identity, its own feel, and can earn its own respect on its own feet. There has been a lot of work and very clear passion invested in this game by the devs, and you can feel it and you can see it, and man, I am relieved it's not just some lazy half-assed Monster Hunter Me Too game. I'll be making a few videos about my early impressions and such, of course, and do please let me know what questions you might have about it in the down below, and I'll try to address them in the coming videos. Also, while you're there, sub, bell, thumb, etc. But today we're taking a swing at what will unquestionably be one of the biggest discussion points for the entire player community as a whole. And not just for launch, but quite some time to come, I expect. And that is, of course, how it stacks up directly against the behemoth of Monster Hunter, the series that basically invented the whole subgenre of monster hunting action RPGs, a series that next year will have been going for 20 years, and a series that Wild Hearts, despite, like I said, being very capable of standing on its own feet, simply cannot escape a comparison to, nor should it be allowed to. So, everything in this video I'll be talking about in context against Monster Hunter. And the very first thing I want to tell you about is the one thing that Wild Hearts absolutely destroys Capcom's iconic series with by comparison. And it's the one thing that Monster Hunter players have been begging for, screaming for, and being wildly frustrated for by being ignored by Capcom over for years and years and years now. The thing that has become a huge issue for the player base of especially the most recent Monster Hunter title in particular. Multiplayer crossplay. Guess what, Capcom? Anyone and everyone playing Wild Hearts, no matter if they're on the Steam version, or the EA app version, or the Xbox Series version, or the PlayStation 5 version, can all seamlessly simply play with each other. It just works. I've been playing with a handful of other YouTubers and streamers and media peeps and reviewers and the like, and between us there's PC players, PlayStation players, and Xbox players, and the only reason I even know that have been cross-platform multiplayering with these other platforms is the usernames have a little platform icon next to their names. That's how seamless it is. In fact, it's very much the same way that Dauntless, another of the few Monster Hunter-inspired games around, does it. On that note though, some of Wild Heart's other systems are in fact a little closer to Dauntless than they are to Monster Hunter, and I'll come back to that in a minute, because one of them in particular is very welcome and very fun. Now, still on the subject of multiplayer, playing story missions in multiplayer is also way more seamless than Monster Hunter World's notoriously awkward and obstructive system for that, and even still better than Monster Hunter Rise, which did fix a lot of World's mistakes on that side of things, but Wild Hearts makes it truly seamless. If you, say, drop into someone else's hunt who's doing a story mission or a side quest you've unlocked but haven't done yet, and you beat the quest together with them, you get to keep that progress too, of course. You're not just helping them get the progression done, and there's no issues with cutscenes and the like. It's all just handled elegantly, smoothly, seamlessly, and in a way that just makes sense. In exactly 0 ways does the game get in your way when it comes to this kind of stuff, and it's so refreshing compared to Monster Hunter. Oh, and with all this talk of multiplayer, if you're about to ask if you can solo the whole game, do you have to multiplayer? Yeah, of course you can solo it, but trust me, give multiplayer a go, even if you're not usually a multiplayer type of person, because it is super fun. On the maps side of things, you've been seeing some gameplay here, so you can see how it looks, and Wild Hearts does great on this score. Really great, in fact. Obviously, the presentation is a bit closer to Worlds than Rise, whose art style and graphical presentation was restricted by it being originally developed for a Nintendo Switch. Here, of course, it's PC and current-gen consoles only, so it has a more realistic, more detailed, albeit heavily stylized look. It is more similar to Monster Hunter World, except it's even more rich, colorful, detailed, genuine feeling. The maps don't just feel like interconnected arenas like Monster Hunter often does. Not that I hate that, it's just that this feels more natural. And I think immersive is the best word for it. And unlike World, who also had sort of these immersive style maps, these maps are far easier to navigate. Even though they're comparable in size and complexity and scale and verticality, I know I'm not alone in hating, just truly hating, loathing the ancient forest map and maybe even the Coral Highlands map in Monster Hunter World, just for their agonizingly clumsy navigation. They looked fantastic, but oh my god, they're a nightmare just to get around in, weren't they? And the crappy inconsistency of the scout flies failing to lead you to where you need to be in these awfully designed maps. Now, on occasion, you will have to chase down a zoning kimono across a large section of these maps, so you'll spend a lot of time on foot just sort of walking through the environment to the monster. And in Wild Hearts, there is no minimap to help guide you through that, but there is a scoutfly-like system for leading you to your target in a more direct manner, if you want that. Unlike the scoutflies, you get to choose if you want to use this or not. And better yet, it works properly and reliably, unlike the scoutflies. And even beyond that, the maps themselves are just far easier to get around on. They're easier to navigate. They're just more visually clear. Even the parts where you have to build your own little structures or jump pads or zip lines or whatnot to make your own persistent shortcuts through the map. It's the efficiency of Rise's navigation simplicity with the rich immersion of World, and with the weaknesses of neither of them. It is a big win for Wild Hearts on map design in my eyes. And I love these environments just on their own aesthetic merits too. They look wonderful, so full of detail and story and history and secrets. It feels like it's from a proper lived-in world. These aren't just video game arenas that have been stitched together. This is a world they've built for you to sit on. Plenty of environmental variety too, even within singular maps, from fields to destroyed villages to cave systems to ancient ruins to bamboo forests to samurai castles. Oh, and another multiplayer feature that I really welcome is the revival system. Now, this is one of those things that I mentioned that Wild Hearts has in common with Dauntless, because the system is almost identical. But if you didn't play Dauntless, you know how in Monster Hunter, when you group up with randos for a tricky hunt or whatever, and you get people just carting and failing a hunt on you, maybe they're still learning the fight, maybe they're trying a new weapon out and haven't got the hang of it yet, maybe they just suck a bit hard that day. Happens to the best of us. And in most hunts in Monster Hunter, you only get 3 cards before the hunt fails, so you don't get that many chances for people letting you down. Well, in multiplayer Wild Hearts, the same is actually usually true. Most hunts have a 3 faint fail condition. Except, in Wild Hearts, when a player faints in multiplayer, it isn't necessarily an instant failed hunt, or just a trip back to the campsite, -1 life. A fallen hunter in Wild Hearts will stay floored for a small time with an icon above their head. This gives other players a chance to rush over and revive them. This doesn't cost anything, resource-wise or anything, but it is of course a risk to find the right time to do it, because you are locked there on the spot in a revive animation with them, and while you can cancel out of the revive animation, it's not a quick thing to do, so pick your openings carefully or you will have 2 players down instead of 1. And I found it just as rewarding to rescue someone here as I used to do in Dauntless, a game that I had several armor sets actually fully dedicated to specifically playing a medic to speed up how fast I could revive someone, and to increase how much health they had when I did revive them, that kind of thing. And at the time of writing, I have done 37 multiplayer hunts in Wild Hearts, and I have revived other players 34 times. That's right, I am a hunt-saving goddamn hero is what I am. Now, I don't play dedicated healer as a class type, hardly ever, but damn man, you watch me be a field medic in games with revive systems like this. It feels so rewarding to get a fellow hunter back into the battle, and of course save us one of our precious lives. And yes, if you are one of those players who does like to specialize in playing a healer and support type character, there are indeed armor skills and perks that can speed up how fast you can revive people, and things like health restorative boosters and protections you can spawn in and upgrade in the Karakuri system. But okay, how about something that Wild Hearts does worse than Monster Hunter? Well, while the crafting trees for the weapons are really interesting, and man, you just watch the min-max meta types create endless guides and whatnot about this system, because it can get deep. The crafting system itself has a huge flaw, and it is a thing that modern Monster Hunter does way smarter. And it's the simple act of being able to wishlist upgrades, which lets you easily keep track of what materials you need, how many of them you need, and rather more vitally, Monster Hunter does a much better job of indicating where the hell these materials even come from. In the private Discord, for those of us in the media preview, there was multiple daily posts from people baffled about how to obtain basic crafting ingredients, because the game does a piss-poor job of informing you about this stuff. Not even the naming scheme of a lot of these item drops give any useful hints about where they came from or where you need to go to get them. The kimono monster drops aren't so bad. There's a hunter's guide style thing which helps with that, but there's a huge amount of other stuff from gatherables and farmables that is nearly beyond esoterically presented. Even if you already stumbled across one of something, you just picked it up as you were running through the map. You weren't paying attention to what it was, you saw a gatherable, you picked it up, you're on the way to hunt, whatever. The game doesn't often tell you enough about it when you go look at it in the inventory, so you can go easily track down more when you discover that you need more. And man, did I get annoyed by this more than once while trying to make simple upgrades. Now, this won't be quite so infuriating for regular players once the game is actually, properly released, because there will be a community and a wiki being built by the community. But the community solving this problem isn't the point, because this kind of stuff should be in the game with crafting trees this spiderwebby. It is just bad game design expecting players to maintain our own resources to fix a problem with this vital information. And dumber still to design a game that forces your players to stop playing your game to go do friggin' Google or post another damn Reddit thread on how to get some goddamn moth cocoons or something. Good game design would keep a player engaged in, playing the game. But let's be fair, Monster Hunter is not perfect on this score either. Ask anyone who wanted to know how to get more paw print stamps for a certain special weapon design in Rise, for example. But even with holes like this, Monster Hunter is still vastly, and I mean vastly better at this stuff than Wild Hearts is. Now then, how about difficulty in comparison to Monster Hunter? Well, those of you who complained about base Rise feeling too easy or too forgiving, welcome to Wild Hearts. Personally, I found base Monster Hunter World to be far easier than Rise, by mid-game certainly, but we all have our own take on that, our own opinions on that. That's fine. Point is though, Wild Hearts is noticeably more challenging than Monster Hunter Rise or World, even in early game, before I was even out of what in Monster Hunter context would be called the low-rank hunts. I hit more walls in early game Wild Hearts than I did through the entirety of either recent Monster Hunter title in their early games. The Wild Hearts kimono are savage, they're fast, they're unforgiving, and the attack tracking, the pins, the slams, the area attacks and the like is a lot more aggressive, but in a super engaging and fun way though. It doesn't feel unfair, it doesn't feel bullshitty, it just feels, well okay, I'm gonna need to step up my shit a bit. And it is done with deliberate design decision in mind. Every time I hit a wall, the solution was to spend more time farming up the last few monsters I had fought and build up an armor set and weapons specifically designed to take advantage of that kimono's elemental or status weaknesses and to protect myself from their elemental attacks, at least sufficiently enough to make me survivable while I learned the fight properly and worked out a strategy. And in Monster Hunter, that stuff, proper armor sets and weapon alignments and the like, really doesn't matter at all in any practical way until you're very late in the game or even in post-game content. In Monster Hunter, often it's simply enough to have a decent output of raw damage and, okay defenses. In Wild Hearts, it's not enough to simply pick the biggest damage number or the biggest defense numbers and go ham. Wild Hearts can and will ask more of you, and I friggin' love that. Now that said, don't panic, it's not as head-kicking unforgiving as, like a Soulsborne type of game or something, or indeed Nioh, one of Koei Tecmo's other games, and notoriously difficult in its own right, but it is probably closer to them than it is base game Monster Hunter content in Challenge. And that means the feeling you get when you finally get a handle on a kimono, when you can reliably predict its attacks, where you know where not to stand, where you know where your openings are for attacks, and you know what Karakuri gadgets are most effective and when to use them. Man, it is satisfying when it all falls into place and you go from getting your spleen absolutely kicked to paste to instead being able to basically bully the absolute hell out of the kimono for the entire fight, or indeed carry a noob or two in multiplayer when they're struggling with it. The sense of accomplishment is genuine and it feels properly earned. Every time you kick past one of these walls, you feel like you earned your way there, and that feels friggin' fantastic. That difficulty ramp, though, isn't actually a hindrance to, accessibility. The game is actually pretty damn good at leading you through progression, both with the pacing of unlocks of various abilities, how they unlock, tutorializing you when needed on systems. The game is, in fact, a lot more inviting and welcoming than Monster Hunter can be for a lot of new players. Monster Hunter is notoriously tricky for new players to get into, but Wild Hearts is so much better than that, in both the way it sets up and it plays out, the way it explains its various gameplay systems. Wild Hearts is just consistently better in a lot of ways when it comes to this sort of stuff. It's not perfect. There's some stuff that, we as a little reviewer community, I suppose, discovered and had to share with each other because the game doesn't tell you about it. On the other side of that, that is part of one of these games, the community sharing these knowledge, these things we learned along the way. The game doesn't have to teach you everything. Basically, it needs to teach you enough of the basics for you to find out this other stuff you can do and then share it with your fellow players. That's a good thing for community. But frankly, beyond just the mechanics and the systems, the characters and the storyline is a lot more interesting and engaging than Monster Hunter's recent efforts tend to be, including being fully voiced by some really good performances. There's humor, there's pathos, there's genuine character progression and growth as you go through the story. Interesting personalities that are more than just, one-note caricatures or tropes or whatever. And a pretty compelling history and world building going on. It makes the world feel like a proper place with a proper culture and proper people living in it. It's not just a hub town and fight arenas with people who just, serve a purpose of giving you quests or making you weapons or whatnot. I mean, it has that too, but the characters who do that are more fleshed out than they normally are in Monster Hunter. Oh, but let me tell you another thing where Wild Hearts falls well short of Monster Hunter. And it's the camera in combat. At least once a hunt, every hunt, and I mean at least once a hunt, the camera is obscured, or misbehaves, or flings about wildly, or otherwise makes life a living hell to know exactly what the hell is going on. You lose all sense of context, of situational awareness, and it has absolutely caused me death, or very, very, very near death on many occasions. And it really makes me appreciate how crazy well-designed Capcom's camera system is, for how rarely this is an issue in those games, because you don't notice it unless it's an issue. And in Wild Hearts, let me tell you, it is a friggin' issue. Not game-breaking, but certainly on the top list of my frustrations. On the subject of weapons, Wild Hearts has a smaller selection than Monster Hunter, 8 versus 14, but there's still a lot of variety here for playstyle choices. And for context, the original Monster Hunter game only had 7 weapons, so, I have mostly been using the Nodachi, or as Monster Hunters will know it, the Great Sword, and the Claw Blade, which looks like its closest relative in Monster Hunter terms would be Dual Blades, but it actually plays a little closer to the Insect Glaive, mechanically speaking, which I have been loving. There's also the Maul, or hammer, the Karakuri staff, a transforming weapon which I'm yet to get the hang of properly, the Karakuri katana, a sword with a whip-like special mode, the bladed wasaga, a tank and spank weapon that looks like an umbrella, but whose parry window is excruciatingly small, which I really do hope they fix because it is so hard to use properly right now. Getting the parry timing right, it's ridiculous. And then you've got your 2 ranged weapons, the bow and the cannon. And just like in Monster Hunter, even similar seeming weapons, like the 2 ranged options for example, really do feel vastly different when in use. So while the overall selection is smaller, I feel like they've struck a really nice set of options here, a really nice variety for people to choose a playstyle that they gel with most, ranged or close, aggressive or defensive, proactive or reactive, DPS or burst damage. My only real annoyance with the system is 3 of these 8 weapons are locked off until a certain part of the story is completed. The staff, the claw blade, and the cannon. They're not buried too deep to unlock, a fistful of hours, but it's still annoying to have them gated off at all for no good reason I can see. The cannon is gated off for a story reason, but it didn't have to be. The other 2 weapons are just gated off for no reason, and it's kind of annoying. But now, of course, it's time to talk about the matter of the core gimmick, the Karakuri gadgets. These, at first glance, seem like they'd be awkward and interruptive to deploy in the middle of a fight, like they'd get in the way of your normal weapon combo and flow. But the way they've done this, the way it's implemented, is surprisingly elegant. Once you get used to it, which didn't take me very long at all actually, they slip right into the combat flow in wonderful and near seamless ways. And they can be extremely effective in both defense and offense, and I'm still amazed how elegantly this system works. And frankly, I like it a lot more than Monster Hunter World's gimmick of the Slinger and Clutch Claw respectively, and Rise's Wirebug system, well, that's a closer match. The Wirebugs and switch skills in Rise are crazy fun, and in Sunbreak in particular with the expansion they got, oh, it's glorious. But the Karakuri system is actually quite a bit more flexible, offering a lot more variety hunt to hunt, monster to monster, because you'll need quite different Karakuri tactics and devices for different kimono, or simply for different weapon choices. I gotta give the gimmick win to Wild Hearts on this, and I super did not expect that. because, well, I hated Fortnite's build system, for example, and that's what this looks closest to at glance for a lot of people, because, you know, you're quickly spamming up these wooden walls of stuff, and it looks quite a lot like Fortnite, doesn't it? But trust me, it is really different and way, way better in substantive ways. Believe me, it feels nothing like Fortnite's build system. Wild Hearts and Monster Hunter share a lot of other basic systems too, which, while being comparable, there's not, you know, one really super duper better than the other. Food buffs, gathering of materials from plants and small critters, armor skills, weapon perks, and in particular I like how Wild Hearts does its weapon tree and skill inheritance systems. It's a little bit like that little slice of Rise where you could inherit certain rampage skills from tree to tree, but it's for the entire tree and all of the skills. So yeah, at the end of the day, Wild Hearts is every bit a genuine and honest competitor to Monster Hunter's largely unchallenged position. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a brand new property versus 2 decades of refinement for Capcom's beast and a very engaged fan base. Wild Hearts is far from flawless, and in exactly 0 ways am I expecting Wild Hearts to, you know, harm Monster Hunter's popularity or bottom line sales or anything like that. And none of us want that. The Monster Hunter games and the expansions are still going from strength to strength. The player base has never been larger or more engaged. We're not looking for a replacement. Capcom aren't pissing off their players in weird ways, and you know, none of us Monster Hunter people are looking to jump ship out of spite or something. Or finally an alternative good play Monster Hunter, none of that. But this is the good kind of competition, the kind that will hopefully push both teams to ever greater heights. And at the very least, for us players at the other end here, even more choice and even more fun, which can never be a bad thing, and Wild Hearts is certainly that. It's fun. And I truly hope that it is a big success, so on its own rights, it can become a series as long-lived and as richly served as Monster Hunter has been for its 19 years so far. Thanks for watching. This has been way longer than I expected it to be. Holy crap. Hopefully it's been useful and interesting for you. I am Blunty. I will catch you next time. Thank you as always to the patrons scrolling up above there. I will see you in the hunting grounds, I suppose.